Hey guys, I'm about to call Andy Schectman and get the down low on what's up with rolling your retirement investments. It doesn't matter if it's an IRA, a 401k, or whatever. You can roll that over into a self-directing IRA and turn it into precious metals. If you're interested in that, watch this video. If you're not interested in that, click on any of these up here. My goal is to not waste your time, but some people are wanting to hold precious metals without writing, like Andy said, a big check for it. If you've already got money in different things and you want to hedge it with some precious metals, I would be excited about that if I had one. I do not. I'm doing this for you guys. So I'm going to ask him how is it stored? How do I have proof it is there? How is it audited? Is it insured if it gets lost or stolen? Can I borrow against it? And is there a margin call if the metals prices fall? What happens if I want to pull some precious metals out? Is there a penalty? How does that work? And how much does it cost to store it? And at the very end of the conversation, I'm going to ask him what's going on with the precious metals prices. They're being smashed down. What's up with it? He's been in the business for over 30 years. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's been in the thick of it, So I thought I couldn't think of a better person to call and ask. I hope you enjoy. Let's go. Woo! What's up, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
All right, good. Let's do it.
All right, cool. So I got you on right now, and me and Stacy did a gold IRA video, and I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and I thought I would reach out to you and ask you a few questions and have you expound on them some.
Right on. There are within the IRAs better depositories than others, and I don't mean from the bricks and mortar. I mean from the way that they and in particular, not all of the depositories will segregate IRA metal. In other words, there's a difference between allocation and segregation, and this is really a delineation that needs to be addressed. And allocation means it's allocated to the program, the IRA program, whichever custodian that is administrating the IRA, it's allocated to that program. But segregation means that it's segregated within the allocated program to the customer's account. And while almost all of them do that with gold, very few of them do that with silver. And one of the reasons that is the case, Chris, is that the depositories that store the metal typically will give the IRA custodians a really, really sweet deal on their storage rates, typically a fraction of what it would be if you were not in an IRA. And the reason they do that, as you might imagine, is that one IRA custodian could give a depository hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. So for the IRA, very typically you'll see rates of 30 or 35 basis points per year storage, 100 basis points being 1% of the account value. So 35 basis points on $100,000 would be $350 a year storage fee by the depository. The depository, if this were in cash, would probably charge 2 to 3 times that amount for the public to store if it weren't in an IRA. So as a result, since they're giving such a good deal, many of the depositories only allocate the IRA metal, not segregate it, so that if you have a whole bunch of Silver Eagles, you're guaranteed to get Silver Eagles back, just may not be the Silver Eagles that you bought, and maybe not in the same condition that you bought. And so the potential problems, to me, they're real. I've seen them. Mind you, they haven't been tons of them, but I have seen in some of the depositories, I won't mention any names, but well-known depositories within the network that do not segregate IRA silver. And when people take possession of the silver, either to sell it or to take possession of it, because one of the key features of the IRA is that you have the ability to take an in-kind distribution. You distribute the metal that you bought as a distribution. It's a taxable event instead of a cash distribution. Or you liquidate the IRA and take the whole thing. Well, I've seen examples where people have gotten back substandard product, 100-ounce bars that were sold that were all Johnson Matthey. At the time, that was one of only 2 name brand bars. This was many years ago. And when they took possession of literally hundreds and hundreds of bars, the majority of them were all generic, not name brand. It cost these people thousands and thousands of dollars. And there was nothing that could be done about it because the bars were allocated to the program, not segregated to the client. So to answer your question, and what has been a very long-winded answer for a simple question, it's stored at a depository, and it's important that the depositories that you can choose from, all of the IRA custodians will have what's called a depository election, which will list a half a dozen or so depositories they work with, from Brinks to Delaware Depository to Dakota Depository to TDS to others. You want to make sure that they are segregating IRA silver, not just allocating it. And that's really the most important thing. And then, as I touched on, since we're on the subject, to me, the greatest benefit of the precious metals IRA is the in-kind distribution feature. When you take money out of an IRA, there are 2 ways. You either liquidate it, which is give me all my money, which is like cutting a pie into slices and taking a slice here and a slice there. The rationale for doing it that way is that you don't pay, if you take the whole pie at once, you pay all the taxes at once. If you take pieces of it over time, you mitigate the tax burden, and eating the whole pie at once could actually push you up into a higher tax bracket because it's regular income that you are paying when you take distributions out of your IRA. So anyways, the ability to distribute the metal in what's called an in-kind distribution is really the whole key to the IRA. It gives you the ability, if trouble is coming on the horizon, to liquidate your IRA or take distributions in the physical metal in lieu of a cash distribution. And this is why it's so important to know where your metal is being stored, and is it not just allocated to the IRA program, but is it segregated, in this case, to Chris? That's the most important thing, and that's something that you'll be able to rather easily, in weighing your depository options, be able to figure out which are the ones that segregate and which are the ones that only allocate.
All right, so how does Miles Franklin store it? Maybe that was a better...
Well, we really don't store in the IRA capacity. I mean, the depositor or the custodian that I have on my website, even though we work with all of them, is New Direction. And the reason I like New Direction out of Louisville, Colorado, is that they're one of the 2 custodians, the other being Entrust, that have a relationship with the Dakota Depository in Fargo, North Dakota. Now, the Dakota Depository are people, admittingly, they're my friends and I trust them. However, they segregate IRA metal. And that's the most important thing in the world to me, is that if you're going to have it in your IRA, have it segregated to you, so that if you want possession of that metal, you're going to get the metal that you bought, that was put in the account to begin with, not scooped out of a pooled account. It'll be the same genre in the other case. If it's 100-ounce bars, it'll be 100-ounce bars. If it was Silver Eagles, it'll be Silver Eagles. But if I bought a box of 2022 Silver Eagles, that's what I want returned to me when I take that in-kind distribution. So we really don't pick and choose, but if I had a choice, I would work with New Direction or Entrust, specifically because they have relationships with the Dakota Depository, where I know all IRA metal is not just allocated to Entrust or to New Direction IRA program, but segregated to the client.
Okay, how do I have proof it's there?
You're going to get a statement from both the custodian, New Direction or Entrust, and also the depository. and you can take possession of it. So that's really the important thing, is that you're getting statements both from the custodian and the depository. That's about as much proof as you'll get. And another reason I like working with the Dakota Depository, these are folks that I've worked with personally for over 30 years. I very close with the family, and I trust them. So, other options are Brinks, and we have a very strong relationship with Brinks and have our own Brinks storage program. But our Brinks storage program, which I am a huge fan of, I think it's the best in the industry, is independent of IRA storage. So even though we have a storage relationship with Brinks in, let's say, Salt Lake City, as an example, most of the IRA custodians have relationships with Brinks Salt Lake City, but it's not our relationship. It's a relationship that was pre-negotiated with the custodian. So you could have two storage accounts at Brinks Salt Lake City, one with our Brinks segregated fixed rate program. That would be for non-qualified money or cash. And then you could have an IRA with any of the custodians who have relationships with Brinks Salt Lake City, and it would be at that rate. If you took distributions out of that account and put it into your non-qualified account at Brinks under our rate, the rates would be different. We have the only fixed rate in the industry, but it has nothing to do with IRAs. So IRAs are a little bit more tricky and are specific to the custodian, whether it be New Direction, whether it be Entrust, whether it be Equity. I mean, there's a million different IRA custodians, about a dozen that allow physical metals. And it's important that you do your homework and make sure that if you are going to do a precious metals IRA, to me, the most important thing is where is it stored, because the custodians are just really kind of like paper pushers, right? They're not holding your metal. The metal is being held at the depository. The custodians are just the ones that are providing the statement, making sure everything is kept in a chain of custody in terms of its tax status, and filing paperwork with the IRS and to you for taxes. So they don't ever hold your metal. The metal is being held at the depository. So to me, in this case, it's the depository that's the most important thing.
All right. Is it insured if it gets lost or stolen?
Everything is always insured in the depository. Absolutely.
Okay. Can I borrow against it? Is there a margin call if the metals, if they fall? I've noticed that in crypto lending and stuff like that.
So we have a lending program that we do within our Bring Storage program, but I don't believe you are able to lend against it in an IRA. You may be able to, I don't think so. I don't believe that you can pledge it as a margin account within an IRA. Not that I know of anyway, so no. But if it were, if you had 100 gold eagles in one of our Brinks accounts, we would lend you, in essence, 75% of that value. But within an IRA, it's a little bit different because you're talking about pre-tax dollars.
Right. Now that's my next question, actually. Can I pull some PMs out and pay a penalty?
The only penalty you pay is if you're under 59 and a half. You can take them out and pay regular income tax. If you're under 59 and a half, you pull them out and pay regular income tax plus a 10% penalty. So for people who are nearing the retirement age and you're already over 59 and a half, it's a great vehicle. It allows you to make a big splash in the gold pool without writing out a big check. And then you start taking distributions. But when you take a distribution out of the IRA, it's the same thing as getting a paycheck from an old employer. It's income that will go towards your income tax bill. And if you were to take the whole thing out, you'd be bumped up probably into a higher tax bracket. But you could do the exact same thing by saying, send me all my gold and silver. It's the same thing as taking a cash distribution totally. So yes, you can do whatever you want with the distribution, whether you're of retirement age or not. If you are under the retirement age, you pay a 10% penalty on top of income tax. If you are above 59 and a half, it's just income tax.
So they just run that on spot price?
They do, which is a benefit too, because if you know anything about premiums nowadays, that's a hell of a deal. If the bid price on Silver Eagles is $8 or $9 over spot, the ask price 11 or 12 or whatever, and it's being bid, or I mean, it's being calculated at silver spot. That's a heck of an advantage when you are selling it and getting that amount, but only paying taxes on the melt value. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's very unusual what's happening right now with premiums. Granted, albeit it's almost 2 years long now, but yes, it's kind of a benefit to the taxation.
And the last question, how much does it cost to store it? How much does it cost to store it?
They're a little higher than some of the others who some of them don't segregate IRA silver, but in any case, it's not going to be a lot. So that would be the high end of it. You may find it even as low as 20, 25 basis points per year. So again, 100 basis points is 1%. If it's at 35 basis points, that's $350 per 100,000
a year.
A year. And what they do is most of them will take the average price of the month. So if silver went to $100 today, but then came back to where it is, it wouldn't really affect the monthly price. They'll take the average of the month and they'll bill it every quarter, and then you pay once a year, or in some you have to pay every quarter. So if the average price of silver was, let's say, $30 for the next 3 months, and you have 1,000 ounces, you got $30,000 worth of value there. They would bill you at 35 basis points of $30,000, and so you're not talking very much money at all here, and a couple $100 if that, and per year, and that's your storage expense. So really, it's very nominal in the grand scheme of things.
Nice. Well, man, I appreciate you answering all that for me. While I got you here, what the hell's going on with gold and silver? Are they just paper? Is it paper prices we're dealing with?
Yeah, you have the FOMC meeting coming tomorrow, and that's always they always like to smash the price leading into the FOMC meeting, especially when they're going to raise rates. And you got what looks to be like a lot of short covering by the commercial banks as well. And so you smack it down, you cover it, you smack it down and make the dollar and the situation with the dollar seem better heading into the FOMC meeting. It's all a bunch of nonsense, and it should be viewed as a subsidy. I understand it gets old. It gets old to hear that. It gets old to witness it. But it just goes to speak, I think, Chris, to the desperation and the late inning, Hail Marys, late in the game, Hail Marys, to make things seem a whole lot better than they are, when I think it's getting incredibly tenuous out there on many levels. And you got Russia just coming out there and more or less admitting to backing their currency with gold and other commodities, and you have a world that is moving away from the dollar. And then you got these foolish left politicians like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi going to meet with Zelensky and tell him we're in this with you till the end, and sending billions of dollars worth of arms to defend themselves. It's a provocation of war, and it's like they're pushing us into World War III with Russia, and I think things are really starting to in terms of reasons to buy gold and silver, really starting to get valid. I mean, more so than ever. The weaponization of the dollar, the provocation of Russia, the de-dollarization by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, the deals that are being struck outside the dollar, all of these things are screaming gold and silver should be higher. And the fact that a couple of commercial banks on COMEX are able to control the price right now, it's not only a joke, but it's actually a gift. And it's a gift in the respect that when all hell breaks loose, and I think it will on many levels, still having the ability to exchange paper dollars, which are going to come under severe strain and severe pressure as the dollar loses its singular world reserve status, and convert it into metal while you still can. It's a gift, but in the end, you know, it'll be looked that way, but when you're in the middle of it, it's frustrating. So, look, it's the FOMC meeting, and what it really is, it's a masquerade. It's an attempt to make the dollar seem like it's much stronger than it is. It's the wizard behind the curtain, you know, and I think before the music stops, the curtain will be pulled back to expose the wizard, and that's when you'll be thankful that you have precious metals. Because look, there are very few, if anything, any longer, with the exception of gold and silver, that are inversely correlated to the U.S. stock market, and gold and silver are. And when the market collapses, it'll be because interest rates spike. The only problem with all of that is that bonds and real estate go at the same time. And when the dollar collapses because it's being dumped globally, at the same time it pushes up interest rates, blowing up stocks, bonds, and real estate. That's the four pillars of wealth in this country that all disintegrate at the same time. Dollars, stocks, bonds, and real estate, all in the face of massive dollar divestiture and rising rates. And that's coming, and we are provoking the world into doing this by weaponizing the dollar, and I think it's coming. And owning metals has never been more important, ever. And so it sucks when you're in the middle of it, but it in the end, it's a gift.
It doesn't to me. I don't know if I like it going up more or going down more. Gives me a little more time to prepare, and for everybody that listens to us.
That's just it, Chris. It's right. I mean, that's how you have to look at it. And, you know, especially when it's so blatant. So you're right.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for answering these questions.
It's always my pleasure. I'd really like to come on more. So, you know, please, once a week, whenever you'll have me, just call. I'm happy to jump on. It's a pleasure.
All right, bro. Thank you. Bye.
Stay well, Chris.
Yes, sir. Bye. So that was a long-winded answer to these questions, but that's the way he is. He's, you know, trying to get all of it out there. And it seemed like if I had an IRA, which I don't, I got out of mine a long time ago. I'm early. I'm always early. It seemed like a decent way, a creative way to obtain them. And that is a service that we provide. Do your own research, but $350 on 100 grand a year doesn't sound like that big of a deal with the metals being down like they are, because they're not going to be able to do this forever. If they do, it'll be the first time in human history. All fiat currencies have died. Every one of them, every last one of them. And the average they live on the earth is 50 years. We are in year 51 at negative real interest rates. The only thing they got left is printing money. So keep that in mind as we get into the Thunderdome. We are in the descent, I feel like. When we get down here and the dust settles, I think precious metals are going to do very, very good. Have an awesome, awesome day, guys. Later.